Hi, and welcome to the Chosen Business Owners Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Reel, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Andrew McCurry, and he is the Vice President and Operations Manager of the Alabama office for Father Nature Landscapes. And so I'm really excited to talk with you today. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Well, I am doing good, Michelle. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm excited to hear about a little bit more about your company. You and I chatted for a few minutes beforehand, but I'm excited to hear how Father Nature Landscapes got started, how your entrepreneurial journey got started. Did you start with this company? Was this the first company you owned? Did you own other companies before? So if you wanted to go ahead and just give us a little background on yourself and how you got started, that'd be great.
I would love to. Cut me off whenever you need to, but my journey started like most guys or gals in the landscape industry, and that is, mowing yards just to make money. And it, had interesting jobs as a youngster, but a lot of them, did not pay very well. And so the first time, if you're making $8 an hour or $5 an hour, and then you get to cut a yard for $25, that first yard, it opens your eyes to what can be. Mm-hmm. And so I will say I started, as soon as I could drive, I started doing lawn maintenance and, landscape maintenance and stuff like that, which turned into little enhancements and renovations. And I guess when I was 18, I got my first install. I got to bid on an install and didn't even know how or what that meant. But got the job and made some money because I had no overhead, and I didn't realize what I did have or did not have up until that point. But I guess by the time I was 19, I realized that I felt like I was making a lot of money, which I look back and it's not great money now by any means, but it was way more than what, my friends, were making doing what they were doing. And I felt limited with my knowledge. And so I felt like if I could expand my knowledge, I could expand my business, because I really had a huge curiosity and passion for what I was doing. I really enjoyed being with plants, really enjoyed being with people, and somehow I wanted to connect those two worlds. So I studied horticulture at Auburn University and got out and took a brief stint in Alaska to figure out what I wanted to do after school. And when I came back from that commercial salmon fishing experience, I met with a businessman in town that owned a retail garden center, and he wanted to start a landscape division. So I was his guy. He had a great source of leads of just people coming into the garden center that needed a landscape consultant to just kind of go out and tell them what to do, where to put things, that kind of thing. But that turned into just a very successful business for him. And so fast forward a little bit, met my wife, wanted a little bit more for my family than what I was able to do there. And so we left the great state of Alabama, where we were both kind of born and raised, and moved to Washington State, where just through some doors closing, the door to open Father Nature Landscapes kind of revealed itself. And so that's where we first incorporated Father Nature, even though I had called my business Father Nature as a sole proprietor while I was in and out of high school.
And so you're currently, though, now in Washington and in Alabama, correct?
That is correct. We so when we incorporated in 2009, actually no, it was 2006. I'm sorry. We incorporated in 2006 up there. And when my wife and I had our first child, I spoke with my brother, who's now my business partner here in Birmingham, Alabama. And he kind of got the business going before I came back, because he and I knew that we would both need to somehow have some type of money coming in. So as I was trying to get that ready to pass off to my soon-to-be business partner at Tacoma, he was getting this going from the ground up here in Birmingham.
That's awesome. And so tell me, so you've basically started the company twice. You started it in Washington and then you restarted again in Alabama.
That is correct. And if people get on the website, they'll actually see that there's another location down in Mobile, Alabama. And I had helped a friend start a Father Nature Landscapes in Alabama down in Mobile. He did most of the legwork. I just helped him with kind of the business aspect of things and the branding of things. And now we support him with the website and stuff like that. But it is no longer an entity that I have any part in other than the marketing representation of his work.
That's awesome. And what would you attribute your success to as far as like getting these started? Like what were some of the key things in getting these businesses started to get them out in the public, out, so people knew who you were?
Well, that's an interesting question because I knew not a soul in Tacoma when we moved up there. But just due to my personality, I happen to be good at networking. And so having I guess just the ability to network with people and know where to go to meet people and not being afraid to meet people was very important to our success there. You can never underestimate grit starting any business. Like if you don't have grit, I don't think it would be wise to even start a business because the first several months, if not several years, could be extremely difficult. But I actually really enjoy the startup process and thought I was going to get bored here. And actually, I've had some seasons where it has been less than, exciting here because you have to there's doldrums of business where you have to show up and you have to execute and perform and serve and you just have to do it over and over again. And, in different seasons, you're provided with, new enthusiasm and passion for just either people or projects. So those two things and the grace of God, like we started that business in 2006, which was an incredible economy, but it was soon followed by 2008, which, as everybody knows, kind of not a great economy to have a young business in. But we were very lean at that point in Washington. And then again, we started the business down here in Birmingham in 2009, which was a even worse year than 2008. But it just did not seem like we were meeting much resistance in starting the business because of our service offerings and who, we were identifying our ideal customer as. A lot of those things really helped us to get through those years, but getting through those years also made us a lot stronger as a company.
And so what are the services that you offer? Do you do landscape design or landscape install? Do you do landscape maintenance?
We do all three of those. So it starts here kind of in what we call our design studio. And then, we have project managers that make sure the work gets installed. And we have a service department. But we also have a couple of side offerings like an irrigation department, a carpentry department, floriculture, and even a furnishings department. And the reason we do the furnishings twofold. Number one, my partner's wife is a decorator. And number two, part of our niche is what we call livable landscapes. Mm-hmm. And we don't feel like landscapes can be lived in without being furnished. And so livable landscapes are landscapes that we can see family and friends kind of uniting, reuniting, whatever, socializing in. And we just feel like some of the sweetest memories come in exterior spaces because your senses are more kind of aware to the surroundings of wind or fragrances or, sounds and things like that. So that is kind of our sweet spot.
And when you look at landscape maintenance, do you guys branch out and just or do you just do who you've installed landscaping for, or are you out doing commercial landscape maintenance and that kind of a thing? Lots of accounts.
We have about 80% of our service department, the horticultural, department is going to be residential, but some of our best customers on the residential side happen to be business owners, and we will maintain some of their real estate, their corporate real estate. But again, part of our service department, even our mindset behind that, is we try to come from a hospitality standpoint. And so the service department manager came from the hospitality industry where, we really concentrate on the experience, and it's more of a concierge service. So like, even though our guys don't really clean gutters, if people are hosting parties and they need gutters cleaned and windows washed and driveways pressure washed, like all this stuff happens seamlessly to the customer, even though behind the scenes, there's lots of phone calls and scheduling and logistics that happen that make it feel like we are that full service service department, so that people can throw a party and count on us to party ready their landscape.
So do you do all that, or do you sub that stuff out, the pressure washing and the gutters and that kind of a thing, but it still goes through you?
We sub the majority of that out, but it goes through us.
That seems to be a kind of a common thing that I'm hearing as I'm interviewing people that on landscape companies and other, home services, that they, you get asked a lot, right? When you're out at someone's home and you're doing one service, you're providing one service, they're like, hey, do you know, or could you do, XYZ? And so that seems to be a common thing that people are doing. And it's a great idea for sure.
It works with the right business models. I'd say every business model, it's not going to work well with, and especially a startup. There's a lot of things that I would not touch if I was a startup, because you don't have the capacity to even manage those other subcontractors. But once you begin to, if you employ project managers, that is their job, is to manage quality and manage subcontractors. And if we can leverage our relationship so we get good pricing on things, and we, because we shop subcontractors, we find kind of that value curve of where we have the best price with the best quality without compromise. And that's part of the job of a project manager, is to find those up and coming subcontractors in the industry that really are looking for a company like ours that can provide work, without having to spend a lot of marketing on it, because all they have to do with us is just keep us happy and we'll send you more. So when they're looking at their marketing costs, there's not much, if a large part of their business comes through a service provider like us.
So do you specifically go out and market to people in other industries, or how do you go about finding those people that you're looking for?
It is honestly, it's phone calls and referrals. So, part of, like, for instance, I heard a job got priced yesterday where we had to do some asphalt milling in a parking lot. Well, we don't do asphalt milling. And so, but we have subcontractors that do. And so I gave the estimator 3 names of people that I would call if I was trying to get pricing on asphalt milling. And, he placed calls to those 3 companies. And, some companies act like it's a big deal. Like if you were to say, hey, I've got 3 acres of parking lot that needs to be milled. Well, the guys that don't want to do it, it's going to take them a long time to return, that proposal. Otherwise, some of the other guys on the phone that act like it's not a big deal, that could turn around pricing by just getting on Google Earth and kind of, verifying the measurements and being like, okay, well, that'll take us 2 days. Here's a price.
Right.
When you look at like resistance on even working with people, a lot of that kind of determines who our first encounters are with when we're entering into new lanes of work where we don't have good experience with subcontractors. So,
yeah, I like that. That's great. So what would you say are some of the key things that have helped you grow the way that you have and given you the ability to help people like in these other locations to get started and be out on their own?
I would say from starting up, we have a very strong brand. Our brand presence, when we come to a market, like when we came to Birmingham, we came with a few trucks that were all painted like a cocoa brown with bright green trees on them. Mm-hmm. And people noticed. Mm-hmm. And so we, if people didn't see our trucks, we'd leave a sign, because a lot of times when you're working in these neighborhoods, if the husband's at work and maybe a lot of the wives work, or some of the wives actually have socialized during the day and might not be there to see who's doing their neighbor's work. When the trucks are gone at approximately 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a sign there. So as the walkers go by, they're seeing, everybody's pretty nosy when they see work getting done. So there's a sign there. And then that brand just helps to kind of build reputation. Brand recognition and your reputation. But I would also say one thing that we really focus on is building things that people want. Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by that is, since we are more into the livable landscape niche, a lot of people here in the South they socialize, they throw parties. It could be a football party, a graduation party, a gender reveal party, whatever. There's lots of parties in the South. And so when you build spaces that actually entertain well, people want to know who did it. Right. And that kind of became our thing of let's design spaces like we have been in spaces like this before. And like we go to parties like this and we can critique things that most people couldn't put words to. And then we begin to design our spaces around what makes a space feel good. And so building spaces that people want to have, that I think is really key behind the branding aspect of it. But the brand goes before you. And if you don't have a strong brand, it's too cheap to get one designed to not have a strong brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then in your other locations, are they using your brand there? The one that you opened up in, did you say Mobile?
Mobile, yeah.
Okay.
Mobile, Alabama, yeah.
Mobile, Alabama. So he's using your brand, but he's just separate from you.
Yeah, he's a separate corporation. He's a DBA. So doing business as Father Nature Landscapes. But the cool thing is when our customers here in Birmingham go down to Point Clear, Fairhope, which are some nice touristy towns, they might see our sign or one of our trucks down there, and we begin to appear bigger than we really are.
Right. Yeah.
And I think there's a confidence there when people are able to. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten photos from people being somewhere else and seeing a truck from either Mobile. And it's funny, we just had two. This is a really interesting story. We just had two of our employees from the Tacoma branch. One of them was that part owner that I talked to you about. They were in a pub in England and ran into two customers from the Birmingham market and somehow began talking and figured out that they worked for Father Nature and that these two customers that I work with, it's just so bizarre how small the world is, but things like that are just really cool when they happen.
Yeah, for sure. And so what do you do to keep the culture good in your company? Because you have, is it 60 employees or 30? How many employees?
We have 60 here in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. It starts with Monday morning safety meeting, safe, even just safety as a culture. We talk a lot about our core values. So on Tuesday mornings, we have training sessions for the install department. And right now I lead those. And so this morning we were talking about something called the 4P training method. And it's something that they developed during World War II to train a lot of the women that were running machine shops and building rifles and things like that were in some of these factories that had never really done that type of work before. And we were talking about like the people here at our business that actually train have a higher value than the people here that don't train. And it's because, one, they have the knowledge, but two, they have the gifting of using their words to be able to explain something to another individual and to build their skill set. And so as you build someone else's skill set, as they increase in value, so does the value that we offer our customers. And so we were just talking about that because some of our core values is team. We're talking about how teaching relates to just your team. One of our core values is growth. And, you know, when you're training people, you're growing them. Another one is serve. And so as you teach someone, you're serving them. But again, you're also using that information to serve, you know, the customer to a greater degree. And so it's, even though we have 4 other core values that we talk about, those 3 just happen to come up in the training session this morning. And training and investing in our people just helps continue. That culture is not something you can't just buy that on an ad online and just say, okay, I bought culture, we've got culture. It's something that has to be exhibited on a daily basis. And as I'm recruiting, again, as soon as I get off of this call, I get on a recruiting call, and those recruiting calls are twice a week. And we're talking about how are they as a fit, you know? And a lot of the things that we use to determine if they're a good fit is like, well, who have we had to let go recently? And why did we let that person go? Why weren't they a good fit? Even though they might have had the skills to work here, what worked at their demise that actually caused us to separate ways with them? And I use those. I hate firing people. I really, it eats me up. But it has to be done. And I know there's a guy that I've got a meeting with tomorrow afternoon. And the reason I want a second interview with him is because I specifically want to go over with him the things that are triggers for me that will cause me to back away from him if he doesn't exhibit like a certain kind of set of behaviors that actually would integrate well with our team. And if he doesn't integrate well with our team, then he's not a good cultural fit, and he ends up losing his job, and that tears me up and it tears him up. So it's like I try to be a little bit slower on the higher side to make sure that I get out everything I need to, and I'm as thorough as possible. And I know that I'm passionate about what I do, but I never want to romanticize the position because what we do is hard, you know. And for most positions in the landscape field, there's no positions that get overpaid. You know, people might say, well, salespeople get overpaid. No, they don't. You don't know what they do and what they have to know and how often they have to be around their phone and how responsive. I mean, there's so much that a salesperson has to do and know and be. And even though they might make more money than some of the other positions, it does not go without effort.
Yeah. And so do you have, where are you finding your people? Are you you have a special place where you go to find employees, or?
It's nothing special. I think the special thing that we have is an excellent recruiter that aligns with our values. And she lives in Texas. And I went to horticulture school with her. I think I worked with her at that first place of business I was telling you at that retail garden center. Yep. And then when I left to go to Washington, she stayed around there for a little while, I think, or she might have gotten hired by a church. I think she went and did some, she led a volunteer division at a church, and then went and got her divinity degree. And now she's a recruiter for us and maybe a few other companies there in either Dallas or somewhere out in Texas.
Gotcha.
But she has helped us to find people and cull through stacks of resumes. And we're like most companies, we find a lot of people on Indeed. But to get to 5 people on Indeed, you easily have to cull through 500 resumes. And that's something I don't have time to do, and she makes time to do. And she's good at that, and kind of puts people through some assessments, and even she wants to see how responsive people are with questions that she asks and things like that. And she'll, if she doesn't like the way that they can even communicate, we move on,
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's I like the hire slow, because you can save yourself a lot of pain and aggravation later.
If you can. I know the second part of that phrase, and we're not good at firing fast. We exhibit.
I didn't want to say it.
I know we exhibit too much grace around here, and a lot of the people that have been here a long time realize that Daniel and I we put up with too much too long, because we believe in people.
Yeah,
and we're coaching is not necessarily fun if people don't want to be coached.
Right.
Coaching is extremely fun for people that want to improve that.
Yeah.
And, the people that don't really want to improve or don't see coaching as a way to improve, it gets miserable fast.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Wow. Well, so tell us a little bit about where you guys are headed. If you have any big plans for the company in the future, or where you kind of see the company going, or what your plans are in the near future, next 5 years.
Great question. Next 5 years, we're on a track to double in size.
Okay.
And we'll continue kind of specializing in our niche of livable landscapes. The way that we are going to double in size is there's enough market share here in Birmingham, like there's plenty of room to grow. It really comes down to being able to handle the amount of leads that we get. And about there's a 4-month season where we currently cannot handle the leads. And so we have to decline them. And so through recruiting, excellent talent is how we'll grow. But we also have recently purchased a soccer field next door to us, which we're expanding kind of our laydown area. We're planning on putting a teaching facility out there that would allow us to, we're outgrowing our office. We've got a 4,000 square foot office, and there's really not another seat for someone else to come in without it becoming extremely uncomfortable. And so we either need to expand this or think about how we are going to be able to get more people in, because, even we try to get interns in the summer, some landscape architect interns or something like that. And currently we just don't have space for anybody else unless we put them in our conference room, which doesn't really allow us to be able to use that space for what it's designed for. But I think where the industry needs to go, and it's not going quick enough, is training. I feel like we've got a generation of people around our age, Michelle, have allowed our kids to grow up however we've allowed them. Society has kind of sculpted them maybe a little bit differently than what we would have liked, and that they don't have the grit that either our generation or even generations, that are older than we had. And this is a very labor intensive work, industry. And a lot of people don't want to do labor.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to fight for our labor rates to be high among our customers, but we're going to have to deliver an excellent service. Mm-hmm. And so we've got, changing what people think about blue collar workers is got to change by the business leaders and owners that run these companies, what we tolerate, what we won't tolerate, and how we plan on developing these people who might want to be with us for a career, but they don't want to be behind a shovel for a career.
Right.
And so if they're willing to be behind a shovel and then kind of move up to the second in charge and then be a foreman and then a project manager and then possibly a logistics coordinator or production manager or whatever else, we've got to provide pathways for people to go in our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can lay that out before them and show them what that looks like, and our recruiter has helped us a ton with like career mapping, and what it looks like to be here for 30 days. This is what you're going to get trained on. This is what you're going to get trained at 60 days. And this is where you should be at 90 days.
Right.
And doing all that type of work is not necessarily fun work, but it's very, very important work. And as business owners, if we don't carve out just small increments of time out of our 50 or 60 hour weeks, whatever we're working, for important work, then we're never going to do the things that are going to actually get us to the next level. And that is part of what I've been doing for a couple of years. And it's slow to see fruit. And we're probably a people of instant gratification. Like we can go and do a front renovation and turn around and look, and it's beautiful. And it's like, woo, that dopamine's just kicking, and we get that instant gratification. But like building career pathways does not have that same effect. And so I don't know. We've got to be thinking about the long term if this is going to be more than a 5-year venture.
Right. Yeah.
So that's there's a lot of rambling there, but people development is where if I could preach anything, it's people development, training, coaching continuously all the time.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Well, it sounds like your company's going to do some great things. It sounds like they already have done some great things, but it sounds like you're headed down some really exciting things in the next 5 years for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I've enjoyed talking with you. This has been really good conversation.
I'm talking to you as well, Michelle. You asked some great questions, and hopefully some of the audience will get some nuggets out of what we've discussed today.
I hope so. Yes, for sure. I absolutely think they will. So tell everyone where they can find you. Where's the best place to find your business and find you?
You can follow our work on Instagram. I guess I'm not real good with social media, but we have someone that does that. And Father Nature Birmingham is probably what would pull up what our most recent projects are and what we're trying to portray, to this Birmingham market. Our website is fathernaturelandscapes.com. And if someone needs to reach out to me, I think in about us or something, they could probably find my email there on the website as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So enjoyed talking with you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
All right. Bye, Michelle.